Welcome back to the channel. This will be the first piece of FPL content for the new season, and I'm using the website fpl.team, which I have used on multiple occasions on this channel, so it's a very good resource for previewing future game weeks and comparing different chip strategies and transfer plans. And today I'll be using their price predictions to build a 50-man squad, which can be very close to my first draft, the official one that is released in a couple of days to weeks time, and also comparing it to the team selection when game week 1 begins. A lot of content will be headed your way for Fantasy Premier League after extensive coverage of the Club World Cup. It was a pleasure to have you on board for that fantasy format, yet another one added to the collection, and UCL Fantasy will return in late August to early September, and I'll also be doing videos and live streams for that fantasy format too. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and also hit the notification bell so you're always up to date with my content, no matter which fantasy format it is. And the World Cup, of course, will be next year. The plan currently is to cover that like I did a few years ago back in Qatar, and check all the links in the description for my Patreon and the championships, further links to my videos, amongst many other perks, the Discord server, my X, Instagram and Blue Sky, Spotify, all of that can be found in the description. And when FPL launches, I think the code should be the same as last season. The same goes for the auto join link, but we have to wait a little bit longer until the game releases and you can join my mini league once more. But without further ado, let's jump straight into it. As always, I'm interested in hearing your thoughts about the new color scheme and graphics, and it will be a slightly different look this season. But in terms of transfer plans, you might be thinking, who are you selling? This is a preliminary draft using fpl.team. These are some players I had from Gameweek 38 last season, and David Raya between the sticks still failed to deliver against Southampton, but won the Golden Glove regardless, alongside Matt Sales. And I'm looking to go for a cheaper goalkeeper, so I'll be highlighting one move in each key position, and in goal, this would be the main transfer. In the defensive line though, despite Spurs' struggles last season, I think Pedro Porro could offer great value if he's priced at 5 million, which is the prediction by the website fpl.team, and Daniel Munoz could be priced at 5.5 million because of his attacking potential, and both of them have great underlying numbers, which I covered in depth last season. There was a slight drop off in Porro's stats, which I'll cover very soon, but I still think he's a very good option in Game Week 1 against Burnley at home at least, but that will take place only a few days after the UEFA Super Cup final against Paris Saint-Germain, which obviously will be the main priority there for Tottenham Hotspur. Now in the midfield, this would be the main transfer I'm looking to make, and that's Bryan Mbeumo to João Pedro. This is definitely controversial because the Brazilian was classified as a forward last season, and in Club World Cup Fantasy, he was also a forward, so why would he be changed to a midfielder? I think irrespective of his final position, I would be interested in the Brazilian, and if he's priced at around 7 million, I think it could be a great option, and you might want to go for 2 or 3 Chelsea players considering their start to the season. And in the FDR, which will be referenced heavily in this video, I think Chelsea are definitely worth the investment for the first 6 to 8 game weeks. And in the case of Mbeumo, he might stay at Brentford, although I think that's very unlikely, and we'll probably see a move to Manchester United formalize very soon. But as until now, we haven't heard anything just yet, and that could influence his final price tag in FPL for the upcoming season, and you would expect them to be between 8 to 9 million based on his returns from the previous campaign. Now the final highlighted transfer will be in the forward line, and that will be Alexander Isak to Viktor Gyökeres from one Swedish striker to another. Now in recent days we have seen reports of Liverpool inquiring about Alexander Isak in a potentially record-breaking move, and Newcastle are looking to sign Ekitike from Frankfurt. Now he could play alongside Isak, or we could see something similar from a few years ago where Isak plays 60 minutes, then Wilson comes on for 30 minutes, and they kind of rotate that way to keep both of them fresh for the Premier League and Champions League. But Isak will be one to watch out for, and if he joins Liverpool, I'd be very interested in having him in my forward line. And Arsenal's fixtures aren't particularly great, especially in the first 6 game weeks, which I'll cover very soon, but I think Viktor Gyökeres could hit the ground running, and it would be typical, right, that I talk about buying Gyökeres and then the deal falls through, because Sporting are very, very greedy, it looks like. They keep asking for more and more in terms of guaranteed add-ons and stuff like that, but most journalists expect this deal to go through, and I think Gyökeres could have a field day in Game Week 1, for example, against Manchester United, and if he's priced at 10 million, I think that offers reasonable value. We could see him priced even cheaper at around 9 to 9.5 million. And if he's on penalties as well, and I would expect him to take those duties of Saka and Odegaard, I think Gyökeres could be one of the best forwards in Fantasy Premier League. But this would be my preliminary draft using the website fpl.team. I'd highly recommend that you check it out if you haven't done so already. And between the sticks, I could go for Kelleher, and Brentford's opening game is against Nottingham Forest away. There would be a clash here, as I'll show you very soon, in the attacking positions, but I still think Kelleher could offer great value at 4.5 million. He started 20 games for Liverpool across all competitions last season with 9 clean sheets and 20 goals conceded. We won't see these stats, of course, for Brentford, who are in a transitional phase. They lost their club captain, Christian Norgard, to Arsenal, their manager, Thomas Frank, to Tottenham Hotspur, and Brian Mbeumo could leave the club. And of course, Kelleher is replacing Mark Flecken, who was very good in Fantasy Premier League last season. And Kelleher also replaced Alisson in 10 Premier League matches, keeping 4 clean sheets in the process. The Republic of Ireland international also averaged 4.5 points per game and produced solid returns in UCL Fantasy. I believe he made a penalty save on Kylian Mbappe, for example, in a 2-0 win over Real Madrid. And following this £80 million move from Liverpool to Brentford, he replaces Flecken between the sticks. And Brentford only kept 7 clean sheets last season in the Premier League, but Flecken was still the 4th highest scoring goalkeeper behind Pickford, Sells and Raya, with 138 points in total. The Dutchman accumulated the most saves in the previous Premier League campaign, with 153 saves overall. Now, they will experience a period of transition, in my opinion, and Brentford are one of the favourites to go down alongside the newly promoted clubs and Wolves. So this could be a very risky pick, you could say. But at 4.5 million, I think you can find those really good value goalkeepers. And even if Brentford finish 14th to 16th, they can get a few clean sheets. Kelleher can make a lot of saves and give you decent returns in this position. And you can focus your funds in the outfield areas, which would be my recommendation. And remember, this is just a prediction. There's no guarantee that Kelleher would even be priced at 4.5 million. But I think it's extremely likely. And we would see Pickford at 5 million, the likes of David Raya and Alisson at 5.5 to 6 million, and maybe we'll get significant changes in the pricing this season. But Kelleher should be a budget goalkeeper, so to speak, and that's where you can go for 2 cheap options, maybe even Valdi Morrison as your backup, just in case Kelleher gets injured, and you cover off the goalkeeper position that way. I don't see myself going for a triple up in Brentford, especially in the outfield areas, unless Mbeumo stays at the club. Then you might even consider going for Kelleher, Mbeumo and Wissa simultaneously. But going into the defensive line, Pedro Porro would be one of those first options in my team. Now, he experienced a massive dip last season as Spurs finished 17th in the Premier League, and also the changes to the bonus point system didn't favour him whatsoever. And in fact, previously defenders were heavily favoured in the bonus point system, but then it shifted towards the attackers in the previous campaign. But I think Porro will get more clean sheets this season, which will help him in his quest to accumulate bonus points, and his attacking threat is always very impressive. Tottenham Hotspur are 3rd in the FDR, which is the fixture difficulty rating, until Gameweek 8, and they rise to top after 11 match days. Now, just like Brentford, Tottenham Hotspur have a new manager in Thomas Frank, and there are a lot of question marks about both clubs, but the Spaniard stats are still impressive overall, with 39 shots, 10 big chance created, and 57 key passes. You also look at Tottenham Hotspur's transfer activity, signing Kudus, potentially getting Morgan Gibbs-White, and they do look a little bit serious in this summer transfer window, and they're more decisive in getting pretty decent Premier League proven players, and I think Porro would benefit from the likes of Kudus joining the club. Now, his expected assists is significantly higher than premium defenders like Milos Kerkez, so Porro has an XA figure of 4.71, but all of Porro's numbers, except key passes, were down from the previous campaign where he got so many bonus points and was one of the best defenders in FPL. I think if he's priced at 5 million, that offers reasonable value. I don't see him being even cheaper than that at 4.5. I think that'd be very unlikely. And in terms of 5.5, it's a possibility, but I think with Spurs' form in the Premier League last season, we would expect him to drop to 5 million, which gives him a very reasonable price tag overall. After Burnley at home, it is Man City away in Gameweek 2, followed by Bournemouth at home, West Ham away, Brighton away, Wolves at home, Leeds away, and Aston Villa at home. So I think Spurs have very good fixtures in the opening 8 game weeks as referenced with the FDR, and Levi Colwill is very similar. He scored 2 goals last season in the Premier League and provided an assist in the Club World Cup final. His attacking output is minimal, but saving 1 to 1.5 million over Cucurella could be worthwhile in terms of pure value. After starting 35 Premier League games last season, Colwill was the 22nd highest scoring defender with 109 points. Nothing spectacular, but if he is priced at 4.5 million, I think it could definitely be worth the investment. There is the possibility though, he is actually increased to 5 million and then he would be less appealing overall, and I'd probably recommend going for Cucurella, who could be priced at 6 million himself. Colwill registered 16 shots inside the box, as well as 7 big chances, which are promising stats for a defender, and Chelsea are second in the FDR over the first 4 game weeks and have favourable long-term fixtures. Now, in terms of how things look like overall, they do have Crystal Palace at home to kick things off, but I think it's quite stable and balanced, and I'd say their fixtures are much better than Arsenal's, for example. In the case of Kerkez, he was the 6th highest scoring defender last season with 134 points. The Hungarian created 8 big chances and delivered 36 key passes. This helped him produce 2 goals and 6 fantasy assists. However, Kerkez's expected assist figure was quite low at only 2.57. This indicates a substantial overperformance with the creativity, but I still think he offers decent key passes, big chance created, and I do think he'll get even more assists at Liverpool. And their fixtures are quite decent. I think the first 3 game weeks could be seen as very tough against Bournemouth, Newcastle, and Arsenal, but 2 of those games are at home, and Liverpool tend to win their matches at Anfield. Then it's Burnley away, Everton at home, Crystal Palace away, Chelsea away, and then Man United at home. And I think Kerkez, following this move to Liverpool, could have a very good impact there, replacing Andrew Robertson as the main left back. And I'd be more keen on Kerkez than Frimpong, for example, who is probably more prone to rotation with Conor Bradley than Kerkez would be with Tsimikas or Andrew Robertson. Now, going into the midfield where things get very interesting, Jarrod Bowen had an incredible end to the last season. He rose to 4th in the midfielder standings in terms of FPL points, and he produced returns in the last 6 games, averaging 9.5 points per match in that period. He was still consistent over the course of the season despite a few injury problems. With 13 goals and 11 FPL assists, Bowen scored 193 points overall, including 21 bonus. His disciplinary record is also very underrated, with only 11 yellow cards in his Premier League career and including 1 last season. West Ham have lost one of their star players in Kudus, who was quite underwhelming in the previous campaign anyway, but Bowen has always remained consistent with the goal output, and the Hammers have solid long-term fixtures. They are ranked 2nd until Gameweek 11, and even if you're looking at the first 6 game weeks, I think Bowen makes a lot of sense, facing Sunderland away in the opening fixture. That's followed by Chelsea at home, Nottingham Forest away, Spurs at home, Crystal Palace at home, Everton away, Arsenal away, and Brentford at home. So I think Bowen is a very good investment, and he could be priced at around 8 million, and he's still worth that investment in the midfield. He's one of my favourite options, and I think it was a great captaincy option as we saw in Gameweek 38 of the previous season. Now, Morgan Rogers would be next, and that's assuming that he's still priced at 6.5 million or below, which fpl.team do suggest. He was the 8th highest scoring midfielder with 161 points. He delivered 8 goals and 11 fantasy assists. This complemented 14 big chances and 16 big chance created, which are very impressive numbers for a midfielder at that price tag. And his XGI, the expected goal involvements, was 11.8, which was even more impressive than the 52 key passes he generated. There were some underwhelming stats though, like 20 shots on target and 38 shots inside the box, but these are 2 metrics which he can certainly improve on in the upcoming season. And he earned 15 bonus points, but was hampered by 10 bookings. Remember, I said Bowen has 11 yellow cards in his Premier League career. Rogers got 10 in the previous season alone. Now, Aston Villa have the best fixtures over the first 8 game weeks, but they face Man City at home and Liverpool away immediately afterwards in game weeks 9 to 10. So that would definitely put you off around that period. But for the first 8 game weeks, I think Rogers is still a good option, and I don't mind starting him against Newcastle at home in the opening game week. Now, João Pedro, like I said before, there is no guarantee he'll be reclassified to a midfielder, and in fact, if you're asking me, I think he will remain a forward, but let's wait and see what the final outcome is. If he is a midfielder though, and he's priced at 7 million, I'd be very interested in that sort of investment, and he save a few millions over the likes of Cole Palmer, for example, who is the other standout in that Chelsea attack. Now, he had a great start to his Chelsea career. He scored a brace in the semi-final of the Club World Cup against Fluminense, his boyhood club, and he followed this up with a goal in the final versus Paris Saint-Germain in a 3-0 win for Chelsea. Now, the Brazilian was inconsistent last season and had disciplinary issues, ranging from suspensions, getting away with blatant red cards, and also fighting with a teammate, Paul van Heck, at the time. Despite being left out of the Brighton squad on multiple occasions though, he notched 10 goals and 6 assists. He's an expert penalty taker, but you would expect Palmer to retain those duties and for João Pedro to be second in line, and he still had very good numbers across the board. 17 big chances, 12 big chance created, and an XG figure of 9.14. In 27 appearances, João Pedro registered 47 shots, 30 key passes, and only 20 shots on target, which is something he could definitely improve on in the upcoming campaign. Would you prefer João Pedro to be classified as a midfielder or a forward? That would be the key question. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below, but I have to say, if he's priced at 6.5 to 7.5 million, I'd be interested no matter what his final position is, but he can play anywhere in that front line as a left winger, on the right, second striker, attacking midfield, and also as the number 9, which he did in the Club World Cup semi-final and in the final against Paris Saint-Germain. The final midfielder is the best of them all, Mohamed Salah, who could be priced at 40 million this time round. Is it even possible he goes up to 50 million? That is something that is definitely in the agenda, I have to say. I think it's very possible he can have that significant price rise, but I think 40 million is a very decent prediction by fpl.team. He set the all-time FPL record, after all, for the most points scored in a single season, producing 344. This was courtesy of 29 goals and 18 assists, winning the Golden Boot and the Golden Playmaker awards simultaneously. He was also awarded the most bonus points with 55, and every attacking number was sensational. 130 shots, with 119 of them being inside the box. These are ridiculous numbers. His XG was 24.41, and this was alongside 46 big chances, 28 big chance created, and 89 key passes. There was a massive overperformance in terms of the assists, because his XA was only 9.58, but that was because of Salah's playmaking abilities and also the quality of Liverpool's finishing. Imagine if they had Alexander Isak to their attacking ranks. The Egyptian has always scored over 200 points in a season with Liverpool, and his Gameweek 1 record, you just can't really turn it down, and you can't ignore it at all, otherwise you could be burned. He has 10 goals and 8 assists in 9 matches, producing 7 double-digit returns in the process. Last season the victim was Ipswich Town, and this time round it could be Bournemouth at home there for Liverpool, and that could be another massive return to add to Salah's extensive collection. And I mentioned Liverpool's fixtures beforehand, and I have to say I still think they're the favourites in most of those upcoming matches, but I think Salah typically starts the season very strongly, but he does end the campaign a little bit worse, I have to say, and we saw this pattern repeat itself once more in the previous season, and that's why he failed to break the all-time assist record, which is 20, set by Kevin De Bruyne and Thierry Henry. But let's now move on to the forwards, and there are 3 in the starting 11, Wissa, Chris Wood, and potentially Victor Gyökeres. So with Wissa, Brentford are 4th in the FDR over the first 7 game weeks, and they remain 7th after facing West Ham away in matchday 8. Wissa was also the 4th highest scoring forward last season, producing 185 points. That was more than Erling Haaland, who was worth double the amount in FPL. The Congolese striker produced 18 goals and 6 assists, which marked his best ever season, and the XG matched his goal scoring at 18.37. He was also on the end of 34 big chances, and the most impressive stat of them all is the 90 shots, with 77 of them being inside the box. There could be a drop-off in Vissa's output with the likely departure of Bryan Mbeumo, especially with his assists. So let's keep an eye out for that situation and how will that impact Wissa in the long term. But I do like Brentford's opening fixtures against Nottingham Forest, Aston Villa, Sunderland, Chelsea, Fulham, Manchester United, then Manchester City, but West Ham away could also be quite favourable in the first 8 game weeks. But Chris Wood does face Wissa in the opening game week, and he had his best ever season as well, notching 20 goals and 3 assists, which was enough to score 200 FPL points. Only Alexander Isak outscored Chris Wood amongst forwards, and the New Zealand international was also a bonus points machine with 41, which was joint second alongside Matheus Cunha, and only Salah had more. Now, Chris Wood's stats weren't spectacular, but 28 big chances remained solid, and his XG was 13.56, but the expected assist figure paled in comparison at only 1.59. This suggests a massive overperformance overall, even with the goals scored, because an XG of 13 and then scoring 20, you could say that isn't sustainable, and we have seen examples in the past with Ollie Watkins, for example, and other strikers who showed really good promise and a lot of potential in certain seasons, but you can see a drop-off in the upcoming campaign. Now, Chris Wood only took 68 shots, with 35 of them being on target, so he was extremely clinical in the previous campaign. There was a drop-off towards the end of last season, though, with only 2 goals out of the last 10 Premier League matches, so if that form continues, I don't think Chris Wood will be that appealing in the new season. Forest fixtures, though, compensate for this lack of form, but it remains to be seen how they'll deal with the extra fixtures due to the Europa Conference League. There are also doubts surrounding the transfer market. Alanga sale to Newcastle, coupled with Gibbs White, potential move to Spurs, could create holes in the squad that are difficult to replace, especially with Chris Wood, who needs that service and creativity to thrive. So losing Gibbs White and Alanga would be massive blows to Nottingham Forest, and they need absolute quality in the transfer market to replace those 2 players in the process. Now, fpl.team have Chris Wood and Visser priced at 7.5 million, and very soon you'll see all the provisional prices on screen so you can follow them as we go along. But I still like Nottingham Forest's fixtures against Brentford at home, Crystal Palace away, West Ham at home, Arsenal away, Burnley away, and Sunderland at home. Then it's followed by Newcastle away and Chelsea at home, but for the first 6 game weeks, I think they're very solid throughout, and even longer term, I think Nottingham Forest are quite competitive in terms of their fixtures. But the final forward is Gyökeres, and he's on the verge of completing a €70 million move to Arsenal. He is a goal-scoring machine who has scored 97 goals in 102 games for Sporting. The Swedish striker produced 54 goals and 13 assists in 52 games last season, the most of any player across Europe, and he scored 6 goals in 8 Champions League matches, so I covered him in UCL Fantasy. This includes a hat-trick against Manchester City. He was also the top scorer of the Nations League with 9 goals for Sweden, and considering his penalty record, there's a good chance he becomes the number 1 penalty taker over Saka and Odegaard, who can rotate, and typically we saw this trend of Saka taking the penalties in home matches and Odegaard away, but they typically kind of change last minute to catch the keeper off guard. And despite them scoring most of their penalties, I think with Gyökeres, they'll be less doubt on most occasions. And of course, Saka missed a big one against Real Madrid not so long ago. But the problem with Gyökeres or Saka or any Arsenal pick are the upcoming fixtures. Man United away isn't really that great on paper for Arsenal. They typically struggle at Old Trafford. Then it's Leeds at home, where the likes of Saka and Gyökeres are great captaincy options. Then it's Liverpool away, Nottingham Forest at home, Manchester City at home, and Newcastle away. Then there's a great positive swing in their favour. So from Gameweek 7 to 12, Arsenal will be top of the FDR, but they're nowhere near that for the first 6 game weeks, despite their quality and some interesting summer signings, to say the least, like Madueke, Norgard, Kepa Arrizabalaga, and a few others. Christian Mosquera could be another one, and there's also Zubimendi, who could be a very important figure in the midfield. But in FPL terms, the only one I'm interested in is Victor Gyökeres, if that move goes through, and with Arsenal, you just never know in the transfer market. But in terms of the subs, I'll cover them quite briefly. Valdi Morrison, there's not really much more to say. He's a 4 million backup goalkeeper who complements the Kelleher pick. It's highly unlikely that I want to triple up on Brentford, which I mentioned before, and this would only change if Brian Mbeumo stays at the club. But Semenyo, I just love this pain, don't I? Because last season, every time I started Semenyo, it seemed like he did nothing, and when I benched him in difficult fixtures, he just stepped up time after time again. So I think that's something worth bearing in mind this season, even against Liverpool away in Gameweek 1. He could return in that fixture, and he has done so before at Anfield, but I think the main appeal with Semenyo is the shot volume. He produced 125 last season, with 85 of them being inside the box. 11 goals and 7 assists mark great value at his 5.5 million starting price, and fpl.team predict a 1 million increase to 6.5 million. On the other hand, only 41 shots were on target, so his accuracy is fairly inconsistent, and he does prioritize shot power over that accuracy. His XGI, expected goal involvements, was 13.72 after accumulating 19 big chances and creating 11 big opportunities. Similar to Rodgers, he was yellow carded 9 times and delivered 14 bonus points. So if he can get some of those bookings out of the game, I think he can accumulate even more bonus points and the same applies to Morgan Rogers. Bournemouth's long-term fixtures are strong. They are top for the first 17 game weeks. However, their opening game against Liverpool could be enough to put FPL managers off from investing in the Cherries. Murillo is second on my bench, facing Brentford at home, and despite being outscored by Milenkovic, no defender produced more bonus points than Murillo last season with a team. He delivered 130 points overall, which was the 9th highest amongst defenders, and the Brazilian could be priced at 0.5 million less than Milenkovic and Aina, which makes him an appealing option on paper. Now, Forest have signed several Brazilians from Botafogo, like Igor Jesus up front, which could challenge Chris Wood at times, and you've also got Jer, the centre-back. Both of them were highlighted in my Club World Cup fantasy coverage, and we could see a little bit of a rotation going on there, but I still think Murillo and Chris Wood would be first choice for Nottingham Forest. Now, his attacking stats are quite average, with 2 big chances, 2 big chance created, and 17 shots, but he is a centre-back after all. He was involved in 12 out of Nottingham Forest's 13 clean sheets, who kept the most alongside Arsenal, and they are top of the FDR over the first 6 game weeks and remain in the top 3 until game week 16. So I think Forest are very consistent with their fixtures throughout, and Konsa is last on my bench. I typically don't recommend Aston Villa defenders, but they ended the previous campaign very strongly. They just let themselves down against Man United in game week 38, and Konsa was the 29th highest scoring defender in FPL last season with 103 points. He only scored 2 goals throughout the campaign, and the England international also delivered 8 clean sheets and 10 bonus points, so both of those metrics were up from the previous campaign. The underlying stats don't stand out in particular, with 11 shots, an XG of 1.3 and 2 big chances. He enjoyed a solid end to the season though, producing 51 points over the last 10 game weeks. That includes a 15-pointer against Tottenham Hotspur, and Aston Villa top the FDR charts for the first 8 game weeks, and there's decent rotation between them, Chelsea, Spurs and Nottingham Forest. So after Newcastle at home, I think the fixtures do look a lot better all the way through to game week 8, and I do like this sort of balance in terms of the defenders. You've got one premium in there in Kirkes, the rest are between 4.5 to 5 million, and you could easily bench one of them with a tough fixture on paper. And with the attack as well, assuming these prices and also positions are accurate, I do like the balance of Chelsea, Arsenal, Liverpool, Aston Villa. You've also got talismanic figures from West Ham and Brentford as well, not to mention Nottingham Forest. So I'm very happy with this preliminary draft using the website fpl.team. But with the captaincy, I'm quite keen on Mohamed Salah, who has a sensational Game Week 1 record, and he's also facing a Bournemouth side without Kepa Arrizabalaga from last season. Milos Kerkez moved to Liverpool, Dean Howson had a transfer to Real Madrid, even Zabani is linked to Paris Saint-Germain, so I think that defensive line has been ripped apart from the previous campaign, and Liverpool could take full advantage. The vice-captaincy is on Jarrod Bowen, who had a great end to the last Premier League campaign. If he carries over that form, I think he's a great option for the opening 8 to 12 to 16 game weeks. I just think the fixtures and the form have been great there, and I think West Ham might not be worth covering in multiple positions, but Jarrod Bowen is undoubtedly their best FPL asset should he stay at the club, and I think these two stand out above the rest in terms of the captaincy. Viktor Gyökeres against Man United away, if that transfer does go through, would still be another consideration, and there's always a few surprises in store, like Joao Pedro facing Crystal Palace at home. Even someone like Vissa could perform very well and at least guarantee you 6 to 9 points, but I think Salah and Bowen have the highest ceiling in Game Week 1, and that's where the captaincy will lie. But let me discuss a few other aspects, such as the predicted prices, and as you can see, Kelleher is at 4.5 million, and Valdi Morrison as a backup only costs 4 million, according to fpl.team. Borro could be at 5 million. I think that's a fairly accurate prediction. Levi Colwill will be interesting. So it's either 4.5 to 5 million, in my opinion. With Kerkez, I think 6 million is a very accurate prediction, considering his output last season and that big move to Liverpool. Jarrod Bowen would be priced at around 8 million. The likes of Rodgers and Semenyo at 6.5 million, which offers really good value still, in my personal view. Joao Pedro could be around 7 million, but is he going to be a midfielder or a forward? If you're asking me, I think it's more likely he will be a forward. And with Salah, 14 million I think is probably very reasonable, unless FPL try to make everyone more expensive, so Salah could cost even 15 million, like Erling Haaland was in the previous campaign. Vissa and Chris Wood could be around 7 to 8 million, so they've gone for 7.5 million for both players there. And Viktor Gyökeres should be priced between 9 to 10 million, and fpl.team have predicted a more expensive sort of pricing for the Swedish striker who has an insane goal record, and I think 9.5 million might be the sweet spot of how FPL price him in the end. On my bench, I've also got Murillo and Konsa, who both cost 4.5 million, and they would rotate very well with Colwill and Pedro Porro. I see myself starting Milos Kerkez in most given game weeks, but it all depends on the final pricing, and that will influence a lot of these decisions, and there could be a lot of changes come Game Week 1. There will be several drafts and a lot of different videos covering everything you need to know. But the final thing I want to show you is the expected points, and as you can see, Mohamed Salah is by far the most promising pick on paper, and all these stats are taken by the website fpl.team. Jared Bowen is also quite high at 4.97, but you could argue that's too low against Sunderland away, and two players in Joao Pedro and Kelleher have 0.0 because they're new transfers, and very soon we'll see an expected points figure which reflects their starting berth and also the points potential they actually have to offer. Pedro Porro's at 3.67, Levi Colwill at 3.17, so they're actually recommending starting one of Murillo or Konsa, who are around 3.2 to 3.3 on my bench. Milos Kerkez only has 3.09 against his former club Bournemouth, and you've got Morgan Rogers at 3.63, Vissa is at 4.11, and Chris Wood at 4.19. Even Viktor Gyökeres isn't too much higher at 4.98, but based on those expected points figures at the moment, they recommend Salah captain and Viktor Gyökeres with the vice captaincy, and Semenyo has 3.2 on my bench. I just hope I don't start with him in Game Week 1, bench him, and have the same thing from last season where he offers a big return, even up against a very tough opponent in Liverpool. But that concludes my coverage of my preliminary draft using the website fpl.team. Go to the website and let me know what your first draft is looking like with the 50-man squad, and let me know your thoughts about the pricing and also the positioning of certain players. There's a lot to unpack, and a lot more will be headed your way once the game launches. It has been almost 2 months since my last piece of FPL content, but we're now back, heading into the new season and building up towards the launch of Fantasy Premier League. But in the meantime, I haven't been taking a break. I was doing Club World Cup fantasy content, and there were over 30 videos and live streams overall. UCL Fantasy and FPL, all the graphics, behind the scenes, I've been working on some new things. Let me know if you like the new color scheme in the thumbnails and also in some of the graphics you see. And it looks like FPL could be changing the color scheme themselves, so we'll keep our eyes peeled on that. But the most important thing is the game launching, the prices being announced, and then tinkering from now until the Game Week 1 deadline. Thank you very much for watching this video and listening to this podcast. If you enjoyed it or find it insightful, then like this video, subscribe to my channel, and also hit the notification bell so you're always up to date with my FPL content. The same goes for UCL Fantasy and other fantasy football games that I cover on my channel. Follow me on X, Instagram, and Blue Sky, DylanRCM, and check all the links in the description for my Patreon and the championships, for links to my videos, amongst many other perks. The Discord server, FPL League, and Spotify can also be found in the description. I'll see you very soon for more FPL videos and live streams, and keep your eyes peeled for the Game Week 1 deadline stream next month.